You know, everyone wants to be a leader. That it's oftentimes glamorized and celebrated. That and in Hollywood, we make the movie about the leader. Even think back to when you were a child. They playing follow the leader. You wanted to be the leader. They because people did what you told them to do. And so from the outside looking in, that it's this glamorous thing. But for those of us that are on the inside looking out, that you understand the stress and the pressure that comes with it, and it's more than anyone can ever know. Everyone wants to be the leader until it's time to do what the leader does. You're listening to the Clark Connection podcast.
This is the Clark Connection Podcast, your weekly dose of inspiration and power. We'll dive deep into the stories and strategies that ignite personal growth and entrepreneurial fire. Join us as we empower you to take control, level up your leadership, and build the life you deserve. Get ready to rise, to thrive, and to finally become the leader of your own destiny. Let's go.
Welcome to the Clark Connection podcast. So great to have you on here with us today. I'm your host, Aaron Clark, aka the coach. You know me. And listen, guys, that we've got an excellent episode today on leadership, and you're going to learn about the three things that come with being a leader that most people don't want. And that first thing that we're going to talk about is you're going to make hard decisions that negatively affect those you care about. Two, you'll be disliked despite your best efforts to do the best for the most. And number three, you give up the right to think about yourself. And one thing that I do know about leaders is we usually get into the position where we are that because of our ability to come up with solutions to a problem. And so I have a question for you guys before we get started because I want to know what your answer is. And look, seriously, drop it right in the comments below. What's half of 8? You may be thinking that's a silly question. And I'm going to give you my answer to this a little bit later. But look, seriously, drop it right below as I give a quick shout out to our sponsors. Then first up, I want to thank Wayne with 7K Metal Associates. See Wayne for all of your gold and silver needs. Then we have Bobbie with a Comfy Quest LLC. That if you're looking to get any type of manual lymphatic drain massage, or a craniosacral massage, which is my favorite, give her a call. Tell her Coach Clark sent her your way. And then I've got Andrew with Automate Integrate Professional Services. If you're looking to expand your business and grow your business and streamline your business, give Andrew a call. He helps with anything from automations to marketing. And so let's dive in. And before we really get into those 3 points, the three things that leaders, that comes with being a leader that most people don't want to deal with, I want to make sure that we have a good definition on what a leader is and what is leadership. And I'm going to put it quite simple. Leadership is influence. It's nothing more, it's nothing less. As John Maxwell says, if you claim to be a leader and you turn around to see who's following you, and there's nobody there, you're not a leader. You're just out for a walk. Leaders have followers. Leadership is influence. That's the most plain and simple thing. Also, one thing that I want to throw out there, that with leadership, that everything rises and falls on leadership. Go and look at any business, any sports team. I really love sports teams. I've told y'all this before, that if you go and look at it, that the head coach of that team is responsible for the results. And if you don't believe me, go watch your favorite team. If they don't win, they have 2 or 3 losing seasons in a row, that there's a good chance there's a new head coach. That they don't go to the bench and say, hey, who's the 5th place, whoever. That they're going straight to the top, and the head coach is gone. And as you become a leader, thinking about that, it's really quite scary, that knowing that, hey, I'm responsible for my team's results. No one else on my team is responsible for my results. That I'm responsible for my team's results. Now, the next that I want to make sure I distinguish between is a difference between a leader and a boss. So the difference between a leader and a boss. And to help with this, two of the people that I'm mentoring, we were talking the other night, and I asked them to tell me that, who are your favorite teachers? Who are your favorite coaches? Who are your favorite bosses? Tell me what you liked about them. And overwhelmingly, it all came down to these were the things that they had said. There was a lot more said, but these were the main things that they said. That they cared about me. The people, the teachers and the bosses that they liked, they cared about me. They told me the truth. Even when I didn't want to hear that truth. They knew when to yell, and they knew when to stop and encourage. They defended people behind their back. They were willing to work with the team. And then on the flip side, I said, all right, so those coaches and teachers and bosses you don't like. And the very first thing they said was that it was like they just didn't even care about you. That they didn't even want to try to care about me. They lied to me, that they would lose their cool over everything, that they talked bad about people, that they told you what to do, and they never helped you do what you needed to do. That's the ones that they were talking about, that they were listing. Those are the bosses. A boss doesn't really care about anybody other than themselves. They're selfish. They'll lose their cool over anything. They're going to talk bad about people to make sure they stay in the position that they're in. You will never hear a boss go say, hey, let's go do this. They're going to say, you go do this. A leader's going to come alongside you and say, let's go do this. And it's one that I think is important to remember as a leader, and we're talking about those things, that as a leader, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go a long time, bring somebody with you. Leaders, they say, come do this with me. And so so now that we've got a good idea, what is leadership and the difference between a leader and a boss, let's move into those three things that come with being a leader that most people don't want. And the first one, I think that really stops a lot of people from being good leaders, that is you're going to have to make hard decisions that negatively affect those that you care about. And fill in the blank, whoever it is that you care about, that whether it's that your parents, your spouse, your children, friends, family, that fill in whatever it is, you're going to make decisions that disappoint them. They're going to be upset with you. Guys, and that's okay. And most of the time, it's on where, how, and what you spend your time on. Now, as a leader, you might have to stay at the office an extra hour, or 2 or 4, to get the job done. As a leader, we don't get the privilege to just say, hey, I'm going to punch the clock at 9 a.m. and then I'm going to clock out at 5 p.m. and go home. You don't get to do that. As the leader, your job requires you to work until the job is done. You got to work until it's done. I don't get that privilege to just say, hey, I'm going to show up and work a 9 to 5 and that's it. When you become a leader, when you're a true leader, that you work until the job gets done. And this regularly happened while I was coaching, especially while we were in season. It's quite common for a coach to work 90 plus hours a week when they are in season. And that's something that most people don't understand, because you're putting in a lot of time and effort to ensure that the team is going to be successful. It's that important. And my wife, she would get upset with me often while we were especially in season. Like, do you really have to stay another night? Like, do you really have to go to that freshman game? Do you really have to go to that JV game? Do you really have to go paint the field? Do you really have to watch another hour worth of film? Do you really need to look at some? It was a lot that I was often asked, and at some point I just stopped defending myself on it. I would just say, this is what we got to do if we want to beat whoever we're playing this week, because we played an extremely tough district. And the thing that I thought was cool about being a coach, and because most of the time I was upset that I wasn't spending enough time with the boys, is during the summer when they were out of school, I was out of school, and so they got to come hang out with me. I just put them in the car, and we went to school. They came to workouts with me. They loved it. That all the other coaches had their kids there, and the kids just hung out. They got to run around the locker room and do whatever they wanted. They were out on the football field playing football, tackling dummies, doing all the other stuff, and it was just something that they got to do, and I thought that was something that was really cool. But it really upset my wife during this time. That point number two, you're gonna be disliked despite your best attempts to do the best for the most. And so that when I think about this always reminds me. I had a young man that I was coaching at the time, and didn't ask for permission to say his name, so I'm not going to say his name. But I had a lot of respect for this young man because he was a worker. He showed up. He look. If anybody knew my playbook, he knew the playbook. He was on top of it. The big problem was that is he thought because he knew those things, he should be playing right now. Now, on that team, we also had the two guys that were in front of him, they were all district. One of them was all state for 2 years, and the other would be all state his senior year. But he felt he should be on the field getting playing time. And now, as the coach, you have to make the call to put the team in the best place to win games. And so I know we had multiple talks where I was just like, look, they keep working. Your work is not going unnoticed. The staff is talking about it. That we see what you're doing. You just got to trust that it might not be this week. It might not be next week. It might not be until your senior year. That we notice it. We notice it. And I'd happened to run into him a couple years after he graduated, and he had told me, he said, man, I disliked you. Like, I really couldn't stand you. He said, at some point during my junior year, I could not stand your guts. If you weren't my position coach, I wouldn't have talked to you and been around you. All because I was doing what was best for the team. Now, we won a lot of games that year, too. We went to the quarterfinals. So, I mean, it's not like we were, I think we only lost one regular season game. We had a great season that year. But you're going to be disliked. But even though you're making the best decision for the most people, they're going to dislike you for that. And that's something that as a leader that you're going to deal with that people don't want, because trust me, I want to be liked. I want people to like me. But I also know my job is to do what's best for the team. Point number three. You give up the right to be selfish. You give up the right to, and really I should say, to think about yourself. I think winning is selfish in general. But if you're selfish for the team, because I'm going to hold you to these standards, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that because it's best for the team, that's a little bit different than saying, you know what, it's about me. I'm the superstar. I'm this, that you're going to do that because blah, fill in the blank. That when you become a leader, you give up the right to think about yourself. Everything that you do that is about the team at this point. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what you want. You are not important as the leader. And again, I'll go back to pick the winning Super Bowl team this year. You throw that head coach up there and they're like, "Oh, coach, you guys were amazing. Tell us how you did it." And they go, "Well, it wasn't me. I didn't do a whole lot. It was the team, man. These guys are great. They followed the system. They trusted the process, and they go through, and they're going to thank the team." But on the flip side, you go find the one that just lost, because you've got to be a pretty darn good leader and a coach if you're at the Super Bowl. And you talk to the coach that just lost the Super Bowl, and they're not going, he dropped a pass over there. This guy missed a block. This happened. These guys, I can't believe no. As the coach, Because you remember, you're responsible for your team's results. They're going, I didn't have my team prepared enough. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. A great leader shares the win. They pass that win along. I know that was because of what she did over there. Man, you should have seen how Sally worked with that client. You should have seen what Jared did over there. You should have seen what Jamal did with this. You should, when you're winning, you pass that on, because it's not about you. But when you're losing, those results are directly on you. And a great leader takes that off of the team to let them know, look, I'm going to become better. But as a result, when your team sees that you're gonna take the L, and you're gonna become better because your team is losing, they're gonna rally around you. They're gonna say, you know what? If the leader's got this and the leader's gonna take responsibility, I'm gonna take responsibility. Because it's all about them. And this can be quite hard because as a leader, we tend to be quite egotistical. Now, whether we want to admit it or not, one I joke with my team all the time is that humbleness is one of my greatest qualities. And a joke because, yeah, if you're bragging about being humble, you're not very humble. But all leaders at some point, they can be a little egotistical because we all like to hear, like, hey, have that somebody near you doing such a great job. You're doing wonderful. Now, we all want to hear that. You're not going to get that too often as a leader. But where this is hard too, because we have to work together with the team to make things happen, and that means swallowing your pride. But you've been put where you are because you were really good at coming up with solutions to those problems. You're a problem solver. And so this is where I'm going to roll back into what's half of 8 and give y'all my answer. And you're probably thinking, Aaron, that's the craziest thing I've heard you say, because it's 4. Half of 8 is 4. And if we were just talking about 8 itself, yeah, I mean, if you have 8 sticks and you take away half of them, you got 4. But if you look at the number 8, why couldn't it be 3? What if I think the answer is E? It could be W, M, 0. Because if you cut 8 in half, the number 8, what's half of 8? And it gives you all of those things. And so, depending on what you're trying to do, 4 may be the right answer, but it might be 0. The right answer may be W, it may be E, it may be 3. And this is where, as a leader, we have to come together and look at all of the options and pick which one is best that's going to get the best things for our team. And so keep that in mind, guys. As a leader, you give up the right to be selfish. And listen, I'm from South Louisiana, and so I'm going to give you a little land yap right here. That just means a little bit extra for all my listeners that aren't from the South. One that I think, and I've alluded to this, is you're going to be misunderstood. And many times you're not going to have the opportunity to defend yourself. That much like I was talking with that former player, where he was extremely upset with me because I wouldn't play him because he wasn't the best person for the spot at the time. Now, he realized that later on. The one where I talked about with my wife, and not understanding that because she didn't understand why I was going to put in this amount of work to make sure that the team won, that it wasn't necessary. She didn't understand, and I didn't try to defend myself. I didn't try to protect and say, well, look, sweetheart, let me show you if I'm not. It wouldn't have mattered if I did. It wasn't until that she became a licensed cosmetologist and started working on her own cosmetology business that she realized, like, oh no, even though we had plans at 6, hey, I just had somebody call for one of my more expensive services, and I can't turn them down. It's an hour and a half job, but it's going to pay $150. And I would just go, cool, do your thing. Do what you got to do, sweetheart. They're just not going to understand why you do what you do, because they're not where you are. Other leaders understand where you are, and this is why it's so important to make sure that you have a group of other leaders that you can go and talk to and bounce ideas off of, because not a lot of people are where you are. And believe me, they're not going to ask you off. They're just going to make a decision and say, I think this about Coach Clark, and this is why I think that, and I'm not telling him. And you'll never get a chance. Oftentimes, you don't get to defend yourself on that. And so, in closing, guys, three things that leaders deal with that you not most people don't want to deal with is: one, you're going to make hard decisions that negatively affect those you care about. Two, you're going to be disliked despite your best attempts to do the best for the most. And three, you give up the right to think about yourself. It's no longer about you when you become the leader. It's about the team. And so if you're looking for more help with developing your leadership skills or your personal development, reach out to me. Look, all of my contact information is on my website. If you go there, click on it, you can fill out a form, and I'll get back to you within 24 hours. I also have my phone number in there. Call me, text me, email me, whatever's most convenient for you. I would love to help you out with that. If you're looking for somebody to come run a retreat or do a corporate event, speak at your event, I do those things as well. Reach out to me. It would be an honor to work with you and your team to help y'all to get better. And so remember that every great journey starts with a single step. So keep leading, keep growing, keep innovating. Until next time, stay inspired and stay connected, and I will see you on the next episode of the Clark Connection Podcast. Thanks for listening to the Clark Connection Podcast, where my goal is to add value to you. Make sure you like and follow the show. You can also connect with me via my website, coachaclark.com, or on all socials at coach_A_Clark. The links are in the description. Huge thanks to my sponsors, Wayne with 7K Metal Associates, Bobbie at A Comfy Quest LLC, and Andrew at Automate Integrate Professional Services. We look forward to bringing you more great content. See you next week.